I actually reviewed my first Lenovo 3i all the way back when I first started this channel. It was one of the first laptops I reviewed, and at the time I didn't know it is one of the most popular laptops globally. It sells like hotcakes. Since then, I've reviewed the new iteration every single year. Fast forward to today, and there's no exception to that rule. This right here is the latest IdeaPad 3i. It's rocking Intel's new Meteor Lake Core 3 processor. Additionally, we have 8 gigabytes of DDR5 memory, a modest 512 gigabyte solid state drive, and we also, of course, have Intel's integrated base graphics combined with Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.2. And finally, this is a 15-inch full HD display. Now, the IdeaPad 3i kind of segments itself as a budget laptop, though the price has been creeping up over the years. As such, we're going to see if it's still worth its price and, of course, what kind of value you can expect from this baseline laptop. So let's get into it. From an unpackaging experience, there's really not a whole lot to say. It's pretty straightforward. Once you open the box, behind some protective packaging, we have the IdeaPad 3i itself in that gorgeous abyss blue color, but more on that in a quick minute. We also have the inclusion of a standard 65 watt charging adapter. Unfortunately, even after all these years, we're still not getting USB-C out of the box, which really is a bit of a shame. You also have the standard wall-mounted charging cable piece. Design-wise, the Lenovo IdeaPad 3i is becoming a broken record. They've been recycling the same design for at least 4 generations now, and the fact is that while it's still a practical design, it is starting to look dated, it doesn't look sleek anymore, and given how popular this laptop is, you would think Lenovo would show a little bit more love. It's still got those linear edges, a straightforward design, though it'll still do well in most business and casual environments alike. It also has a full plastic body, which is normal for most budget laptops. Now, with that said, you do have a weight just shy of 3.6 pounds, which is about average for your, well, typical 15-inch laptop. Starting with the top side, again, a flat, clean surface. There's no unnecessary textures. It's to the point that abyss blue color really does shine nicely here, and then you have some Lenovo badging on that corner. In terms of ports, I think we have a pretty fair representation. So on one side, we do have the DC charging port. We also have a dated HDMI 1.4 port, a USB-A super speed port, and a Type-C non-Thunderbolt 4 port. However, we do get DisplayPort and power delivery functionality built in, so rejoice. On the other side, one more USB-A super speed port, and interestingly enough, a full-sized SD card reader. What I always find funny here is that Lenovo often forgets to include a SD card reader on some of their more expensive laptops, but they never forget to include one on the IdeaPad 3i, which is always kind of funny to me. Bottom side of the laptop, you have a standard plastic surface finish, though it is removable, and also you'll notice that the air intake vent area is slightly larger this year compared to previous generations, which should be good for thermals. And then you'll notice that there are no speaker grills at the bottom, which means that we have a top firing speaker system sound test to follow later on in the video. As soon as you unfold this laptop, surprise, surprise, it's the exact same design as last year and the year before that and the year before that, which means you get that same plastic inner chassis, which in itself is totally acceptable given the price range. The abyss blue color, again, is a rinse and repeat, and everything else looks more or less the same, though you do get a decent amount of palm rest space thanks to the 15-inch form factor. Now, one thing that has improved definitely is the trackpad quality. Make no mistake, it's still a plastic surface finish, but look how little flex there is given this is a plastic finishing. I mean, I was genuinely impressed. It's more tactile than ever before, and the calibration is on point. This is one of the best non-glass surface trackpads I've used in a while, and credit's due where it's due. The keyboard on this laptop genuinely is my favorite part about it. In fact, it's so good that it blows a lot of premium laptops away from other manufacturers. Look at the keycaps. They're large, they're well labeled, they're spread out for the most part, making it nice and easy to use. And of course, you get the inclusion of a 10 keypad, given this is a 15-inch laptop. You also have a built-in fingerprint scanner, which doubles as the power button, and the keyboard is fully backlit, no matter which configuration you get, which is nice. Now, what I love the most is the typing quality. You get a decent amount of key travel, and my goodness, is it tactile. It's impressive how good this keyboard is, and it actually really does put a lot of other expensive laptops to absolute shame in that department. Right above the keyboard, you have a nice large top firing speaker system with a grill over here. We'll talk more about that towards the end of the video. Now, I also want to mention that the hinge quality here is concerning, just like previous generations. It's a single tier mechanism. There's a lot of wobble and immense amount of pressure when you're unfolding the laptop, and if you're not cautious with it, you will definitely end up breaking the hinge through long-term wear and tear, so keep that in mind. Now, you also have a plastic trimming display finish here, so you'll notice you have a relatively thin chin at the bottom, though it's still notable. The bezels, while not super immersive, are fine enough for modern day standards, and then you have again a relatively thin forehead at the top, though you get a bit of a bump at the center of which you will find a really mediocre 720p webcam, which honestly is an afterthought. You look blurry in it, there's not a lot of light compensation, so you know, it's just kind of there. Hey everyone, still here. I'm so happy to see that. If you're enjoying the content, a friendly reminder to please consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video. It helps me earn my bread and butter and means the world to me. No more on this, let's continue. In terms of the actual display itself, it's more or less the same as the previous generation with one positive difference. So things start off with a nice high quality 15-inch IPS panel, a full HD resolution which gives you a 16:9 aspect ratio. The refresh rate is still at base 60 Hz. All of these are fair enough though at this class segment. You also have a peak brightness of 300 nits, which is about 50 more than the previous iteration, which means this laptop does a little bit better in moderate to well lit settings. Now, don't get too excited because the color rating is still stuck at 45% NTSC, which basically means that other than general stuff, this laptop is not recommended for color sensitive activities like photo or video editing, though again, you probably will need a more powerful laptop for that anyway. A quick recap of the specifications: we've got Intel's Meteor Lake Core 3 processor, which can also be configured as a Core 5 processor. You do get 8GB as the standard baseline, but you can configure at 16 depending on where you are in the world. And then you also have Intel's integrated graphics. Regardless of which configuration you get, day-to-day activities like word crunching or surfing the web or watching HD content is going to be a breeze for this machine. More demanding activities like writing or compiling code, for example, are technically possible, but having a mere 8GB of RAM in 2024 does provide certain limitations. And if you do anything more intensive than that, like let's say 1080p video editing which you resolve, again, due to the limited amount of RAM over here, the processor seems to be constantly bottlenecked, which results in a lot of frame drops and a choppy experience. And if you're doing multi-layer 1080p video editing, then it's going to become an even worse experience, and anything higher than that, forget it. Again, the key problem here is that Lenovo thinks it's okay to have 8GB as the standard in 2024 for a budget laptop. I think there should have been 16GB. The fact that you have to configure it optionally is a bit of a down point here. Now, on a lighter note, gaming performance for a non-gaming laptop is pretty good. Games like Fortnite can actually run really close to 60 frames per second on lower settings. This is something that wasn't possible with previous generations, and it's pretty impressive on both the integrated graphics part as well as the Core 3 processors part, so thumbs up there. Thermals, on the other hand, are fantastic. So under unrealistic peak loads, this laptop barely hit 38 degrees Celsius. However, under more realistic sustained loads, we hover around the 35 degrees Celsius mark, which is about a 5-degree improvement compared to the previous generation. Not shabby at all. Even fan noise isn't too bad. We do occasionally exceed numbers over 50 decibels, but these are only in moments we're really pushing this laptop to its absolute limit. Otherwise, you usually hover well below the 50 mark. If you're thinking about self-upgrading, the RAM is entirely soldered on this machine, which is why it's super important you get 16GB if you have the option, because you cannot upgrade the 8 once you get this laptop. You do have one M.2 slot to upgrade the SSD, though it's preoccupied, so you'll have to replace the existing storage. And then you also have a M.2 slot for the Wi-Fi and connectivity module, meaning you can upgrade that as well down the road. You get a 47 watt-hour battery here, which isn't going to provide you with a ton of capacity, so you can expect about 10 hours of runtime, which is still an improvement compared to previous generations, though I was hoping for a little bit more given that the new Meteor Lake chips are supposed to be more power efficient. Now, the speaker system here genuinely surprised me. For context, the speakers on this laptop are actually better than what you get on the likes of the Lenovo Slim 7. That's right, it's kind of disturbing. You have a little bit more bass, you have more depth, less distortion, and while they're not going to be the best speakers out there, they're not bad for a laptop of this class. Here's a quick sound test.
starts to seep into my mind, I can't wait up. Ooh, she looks so good, got me straight in the mood. She read that room, she know just what to do. Moving that body, she dancing and shaking, it's making her crazy, she know how to move. She said
With a starting price of $660 for the configuration we see here, this laptop has definitely been creeping up in price since we first reviewed it all those years back, which also means I keep this laptop at a higher standard when reviewing it. And look, on one side things are great. You still have one of the best trackpads and keyboards you'll find in this price segment. You've got a decent standard of ports, and combine that with the fact that you have great speakers, oddly enough, and also decent battery life, it's actually a pretty good general productivity machine. However, the fact that Lenovo continues to recycle the same design or hasn't made any general improvements to the form factor just kind of make this laptop seem a little bit more chunky when compared to some of the competition in a similar price range. And also, having 8 GB of RAM at this price point is, in my opinion, a little bit cheapskating your customers, because frankly 16 GB should be the minimum in 2024 for ideal performance and long-term reliability. Nonetheless, despite this, if you find this laptop at a slightly cheaper price point than its base configuration, I think it's still a great general productivity machine, and it's fairly reliable as long as you're okay with the limitations I mentioned. Let me know what you think of the IdeaPad 3i. If you're going to be getting it, I will leave links below for ease of reference. And as always, if you guys enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video. It genuinely helps me grow. Catch you in the next one.